Saddam Hussein's former deputy has been given a death sentence from the Iraqi High Court. Tariq Aziz was found guilty of the persecution of Islamic parties. The head of Russia's Duma Committee on Foreign Affairs says the verdict was deliberately timed to distract attention from the row over the latest WikiLeaks revelations. Well, to discuss the sentence further, I'm now joined by the British MP Jeremy Corbyn in London. Thanks very much indeed, Mr. Corbyn, for joining us. Now, after previous convictions that landed Aziz in prison, why the death sentence and why now, do you think?
Well, I think it's absolutely right. The reason they're doing it now, and the Duma are correct on this, is to divert attention away from the WikiLeaks issue, because WikiLeaks have exposed the torture that has gone on systematically. There's information come out today that Britain issued a manual on interrogating prisoners whilst naked in 2005, which is itself contrary to the Geneva Convention. And I think the death sentence pronounced on Tariq Aziz is to divert attention.
Do you think that will? Do you think it'll? Sorry to interrupt, but do you think that really a ploy like that really will succeed in hanging a man who's obviously been convicted a long time ago? Why should it succeed in diverting attention?
I don't think it'll succeed for 1 second, but I think it's an attempt at doing so. And all those that are now joining in condemnation of Tariq Aziz should remember that many of those actually met Tariq Aziz in the 1980s, and indeed up until the Gulf War, when he was seen as the acceptable face of the previous regime. I'm personally completely opposed to the death penalty in any circumstances for anybody, but I see absolutely no point in this form of victor's justice being carried out. It will do nothing to reconcile people in Iraq. I think what we need is a real investigation into the behaviour of the occupying forces and the Iraqi army and its forces ever since the invasion of 2003. These torture allegations and the way in which the US forces, apparently according to the WikiLeaks report, killed people who, because their lawyers said you cannot surrender to a helicopter, that's tantamount to murder.
But nevertheless, Tariq Aziz was clearly a major part of a regime that was, and he himself has been found guilty of brutal crime. So why shouldn't he meet the same fate as Saddam and his henchmen? Well, what's the difference?
Well, Tariq Aziz was part of a regime. It was very brutal. He did commit the most appalling atrocities, and I was one of a very small number of MPs in the 1980s that opposed arms deals with Iraq and raised the issue of human rights in Iraq. I do not see the value in executing Tariq Aziz any more than executing anybody else. It will not bring the dead back. It will further brutalise what is already a very brutal situation. The death penalty does not work.
The Russians have said, in agreement with you, in fact, what you're saying, that this is wrong, adding their voice to many international voices opposing this move. Do you think, as a result of this, that the Iraqi government might actually listen to international opinion and he may be reprieved?
I hope they will. I hope they will listen very seriously to it, because clearly there are some enormous issues that have got to be addressed in Iraq. The death penalty on Tariq Aziz, at the same time as trying to whitewash over and ignore the very serious allegations concerning torture that are very embarrassing both to the United States and to the Iraqi government. I think those are the issues that need to be addressed, and I hope that the UN will intervene and suggest, quietly perhaps or loudly, whatever's the best way of doing it, that cancel the death penalty, abandon the whole idea of the death penalty, and instead look at the issues of human rights and justice, and look at the behaviour of forces ever since the invasion took place.
You're an opposition MP there, talking to me in Westminster in London at the moment. How do you think the British government should be responding?
Well, the British government of both parties has had a very good record at all the UN Human Rights Council periodic reviews of opposing the death penalty in every country in the world. And so I hope and expect that the British government will also intervene on this occasion and say the death penalty should not be carried out, and there should indeed not be a death penalty on the statute books at all in the case of Iraq. I hope they will also be prepared to open up the books on the British training manuals of 2005, as well as putting pressure on the US and Iraq concerning what has been revealed in WikiLeaks. I welcome the WikiLeaks revelations, because they begin to take the lid off the brutality of this war, the brutality that the Iraqi people have suffered, and the tens of thousands that have died as a result of it.
As always, very interesting to hear what you have to say. British MP Jeremy Corbyn joining us live from London. Thank you very much indeed.